Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Rio Bravo in English, then you must like this video. If you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Rio Bravo. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it. All the interesting about this movie in today's video, I am going to tell you. I also going to give you all the information on which I request you friends to watch this video till the end. So start the video. Rio Bravo is a 1959 American Western film directed and produced by Howard Hawks and starring John Wayne, Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, Angie Dickinson, Walter Brennan, and Ward Bond. Written by Jules Furthman and Lee Brackett, based on the short story Rio Bravo by B.H. McCampbell. The film stars Wayne as a Texan sheriff who arrests the brother of a powerful local rancher for murder, and then has to hold the man in jail until a U.S. Marshal can arrive. With the help of a lame old man, a drunk, and a young gunfighter, they hold off the rancher's gang. Rio Bravo was filmed on location at Old Tucson Studios outside Tucson, Arizona in Eastman color, with film processing provided by Technicolor. In 2014, Rio Bravo was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. Plot: Joe Burdette, the spoiled younger brother of wealthy land baron Nathan Burdette, taunts town drunk Dude by tossing money into a spittoon. The sheriff, John T. Chance, stops Dude from reaching into the spittoon, prompting Dude to lash out and knock Chance unconscious. Joe starts to beat Dude for fun, shooting and killing an unarmed bystander who attempts to stop him. Chance recovers, follows Joe into Nathan's personal saloon, and with help from a penitent Dude, overcomes Nathan's men and arrests Joe for murder. Chance's friend Pat Wheeler attempts to enter town with a wagon train of supplies and dynamite, but has to force his way through Nathan Burdette's men. Chance reveals that he, Dude, who used to be a deputy before he became a drunk, and his lame old deputy Stumpy are all that stand between Nathan's small army and Joe, whom they wish to free. Chance notices young gunslinger Colorado Ryan in Wheeler's wagon train, but Colorado promises he doesn't want to start any trouble. That night, Carlos Rabonte, the owner of the local hotel, warns Chance that Wheeler is trying to recruit fighters. Chance tries to stop Wheeler, not wanting anyone to get hurt on his account. Wheeler asks if Colorado could help, but Colorado declines, feeling that it's not his fight. Chance then notices a rigged card game at the hotel. Recognizing one of the players as a wanted woman, Feathers, the widow of a cheating gambler, he confronts her. However, Colorado reveals that another player is the cheater. Out in the street, Wheeler is gunned down. Chance and Dude pursue the killer into Nathan's saloon, and Chance allows Dude to prove himself and confront the killer, earning the respect of Nathan's men. Colorado and the rest of Wheeler's men are forced to stay in town to await a court order releasing Wheeler's possessions, and the wagons are left behind the Burdette warehouse. After Feathers secretly stays up all night with a shotgun to guard Chance, an irritated Chance orders Feathers to leave town for her safety. She refuses, and the two begin to bond. Nathan himself rides into town. Stumpy, having old grudges against Nathan for taking his land, threatens to shoot Joe if any trouble starts around the jail. In response, Nathan has his saloon musicians repeatedly play El Degüello, aka the Cutthroat Song. Colorado realizes the song means Nathan will show no mercy and warns Chance. Chance gives Dude back his old guns, some clothes, and a black hat he left behind when he became a drunkard, and Dude gets a shave, trying to start afresh. Unfortunately, Stumpy doesn't recognize Dude when he returns and shoots at him, shattering Dude's nerves. The next day, Dude is still shaky and is ambushed by Burdette's men, who threaten to kill him unless Chance lets Joe go. Colorado and Feathers distract the men long enough for Chance to get his rifle, and he and Colorado shoot down the men and free Dude. Dude thinks about quitting and letting Colorado take his place, but when he hears El Degüello being played, he resolves to see the thing through to the end. Dude and Chance return to the hotel so Dude can take a bath, but Burdette's men capture Carlos's wife Consuelo and use her to lure Chance into a trap. Dude tells Chance to take the men to the jail, under pretext that Stumpy would let Joe out. However, Stumpy opens fire, as Dude secretly predicted. In the chaos, some men drag Dude off to Nathan, who demands a trade, Dude for Joe. Chance agrees but brings Colorado as backup. Dude and Joe brawl during the trade, and a firefight ensues. Stumpy throws some sticks of dynamite from the wagons into the warehouse where Burdett and his men are holed up. Chance and Dude detonate them with their guns, abruptly ending the fight. With both Burdett's and their few surviving gunmen in jail, Chance finally spends some time with Feathers and admit his feelings for her. Colorado volunteers to guard the jail, allowing Stumpy and Dude to enjoy a night out in the town. Cast: John Wayne as John T., Chance Dean Martin as Dude, Ricky Nelson as Colorado Ryan, Angie Dickinson as Feathers, Walter Brennan as Stumpy Ward, Bond as Pat Wheeler, John Russell as Nathan Burdett, Pedro Gonzalez as Carlos Robante, Estelita Rodriguez as Consuela Robante, Claude Akins as Joe Burdett, Bing Russell as the cowboy killed by Joe Burdett at the start of the movie, uncredited, Nesden Booth as Clark, Walter Barnes as Charlie the bartender, uncredited, James B. Leong as Bert, uncredited. Malcolm Atterbury and Harry Carey Jr. also received screen credits in the film's opening, but their scenes were deleted from the final film. Production exteriors for the film were shot at Old Tucson Studios, just outside Tucson. Filming took place in the summer of 1958, and the movie's credits gave 1958 for the copyright. The film was released in March 1959. Rio Bravo is generally regarded as one of Hawk's best, and is known for its long opening scene which contains no dialogue. The film received favorable reviews, and was successful, taking in $5.75 million, the highest-grossing Western of 1959. A brief clip from Rio Bravo was among the archive footage later incorporated into the opening sequence of Wayne's last film, The Shootist, to illustrate the backstory of Wayne's character. As was often the case in a John Wayne Western, Wayne wore his Red River D belt buckle in the movie. It can be clearly seen in the scene when Nathan Burdett comes to visit his brother Joe in the jail where he is being held for the U.S. Marshal, about 60 minutes into the film, and again in the scene where Wayne, Ricky Nelson, and Angie Dickinson deal with 3 of Burdett's men in front of the hotel. The story was credited to B.H. McCampbell. According to Todd McCarthy's 1997 biography, Howard Hawks, the Gray Fox of Hollywood. This was actually Hawks' eldest daughter, Barbara Hawks McCampbell. McCampbell being her married name. Her contribution was the idea of using dynamite in the final shootout soundtrack. The musical score was composed by Dmitri Tiomkin. His score includes the hauntingly ominous El Deguelo theme, which is heard several times. The Colorado character identifies the tune as the Cutthroat Song. He relates that the song was played on the orders of General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna to the Texans, holed up in the Alamo, to signify that no quarter would be given to them. The tune was used in Wayne's film The Alamo, 1960. Composer Ennio Morricone recalled that director Sergio Leone asked him to write Dmitri Tiomkin music for a fistful of dollars. The trumpet theme is similar to Tiomkin's Deguello. The Italian title of Rio Bravo was $1 d'onore, $1 of honor. Because the film starred a crooner, Martin, and a teen idol, Nelson, Hawks included 3 songs in the soundtrack. Before the big showdown in the jailhouse, Martin sings My Rifle, My Pony, and Me, which contains new lyrics by Webster to a Tiomkin tune that appeared in Red River, accompanied by Nelson, after which Nelson sings a brief version of Get Along Home, Cindy, accompanied by Martin and Brennan. Over the closing credits, Martin, backed by the Nelson Riddle Orchestra, sings a specially composed song, Rio Bravo, written by Tiomkin, with lyrics by Paul Francis Webster. Nelson later paid homage to both the film and his character, Colorado, by including the song Restless Kid on his 1959 LP, Ricky Sings Again. Members of the Western Writers of America chose My Rifle, My Pony, and Me as one of the top 100 Western songs of all time. High Noon Debate. The film was made as a response to High Noon, which is sometimes thought to be an allegory for blacklisting in Hollywood, as well as a critique of McCarthyism. Wayne later called High Noon un-American and say he did not regret helping run the writer, Carl Foreman, out of the country. Director Howard Hawks went on the record to criticize High Noon by saying, I didn't think a good sheriff was going to go running around town like a chicken with his head cut off asking for help, and finally his Quaker wife had to save him. According to film historian Emmanuel Levy, Wayne and Hawks teamed up deliberately to rebut High Noon by telling a somewhat similar story their own way, portraying a hero who does not show fear or inner conflict, and who never repudiates his commitment to public duty, while only allying himself with capable people, despite offers of help from many other characters. Chance also cites concerns for the safety of those that offer to help, and his fears are confirmed when the first such offer results in the character being quickly killed. In Rio Bravo, Chance is surrounded by allies, a deputy who is brave and good with a gun, despite recovering from alcoholism, a young untried but self-assured gunfighter, Colorado, a limping, crippled old man who is doggedly loyal, Stumpy, a Mexican innkeeper, Carlos, his wife, Consuelo, and an attractive young woman, Feathers, and repeatedly turns down aid from anyone he does not think is capable of helping him. Reception. In the United Kingdom, Rio Bravo was not originally even reviewed for Sight and Sound. Leslie Hallowell gave the film 2 out of 4 stars in his film guide, describing it as a cheerfully overlong and slow-moving Western that was nevertheless very watchable for those with time to spare. 26. The film was taken more seriously by British critics such as Robin Wood, who rated it as his top film of all time and wrote a book on it in 2003 for the British Film Institute, publishers of Sight and Sound. Pauline Kael called the film silly but with zest. There are some fine action sequences, and the performers seem to be enjoying their roles. Rio Bravo was the second highest-ranking Western, 63rd overall, in the 2012 Sight and Sound Critics Poll of the greatest films ever made. In 2008, the American Film Institute nominated this film for its top 10 Western films list. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 96% of 46 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 8.3 out of 10. The website's consensus reads, Rio Bravo finds director Howard Hawks and his stellar ensemble cast working at peak performance, and the end result is a towering classic of the Western genre. Director Quentin Tarantino called Rio Bravo his favorite hangout movie. He once said that if his date doesn't like the film, there will be no relationship. Legacy Howard Hawks went on to direct 2 loose variations of Rio Bravo with the idea of a sheriff defending his office against belligerent outlaws. John Wayne starred in both films, released as El Dorado in 1966, with Robert Mitchum playing a variation of Dean Martin's original role, and Rio Lobo in 1970. The 1976 film Assault on Precinct 13, directed by John Carpenter, was inspired by the story and setting of Rio Bravo. Music: My Rifle, My Pony and Me, sung by Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson. Cindy, sung by Ricky Nelson, Dean Martin and Walter Brennan. Rio Bravo, sung by Dean Martin. End credits. Howard Hawks didn't direct a film for 4 years after the failure of his Land of the Pharaohs in 1955. He thought maybe he had lost it. When he came back to work on Rio Bravo in 1958, he was 62 years old, would be working on his 41st film, and was so nervous on the first day of shooting that he stood behind a set and vomited. Then he walked out and directed a masterpiece a la. To watch Rio Bravo is to see a master craftsman at work. The film is seamless. There is not a shot that is wrong. It is uncommonly absorbing, and the 141-minute running time flows past like running water. It contains one of John Wayne's best performances. It has surprisingly warm romantic chemistry between Wayne and Angie Dickinson. Dean Martin is touching. Ricky Nelson, then a rival of Elvis's, and with a pompadour that would have been laughed out of the Old West, improbably works in the role of a kid gunslinger. Old Walter Brennan, as the peg-leg deputy, provides comic support that never oversteps. Wayne and the other men and the gambling lady inhabit a town that is populous and even crowded, but not a single citizen, except for an early victim, a friendly hotel owner and his wife, and of course the villain, ever says a word to them. The shadows are filled with hired killers with $50 gold pieces in their pockets, the price of a human life. All that buys Wayne and his deputies a stay of execution is the prisoner they precariously hold as a hostage. In a film with suspenseful standoffs and looming peril, even a scene where Wayne and Martin walk down Main Street after nightfall is frightening. The story situation was fashioned by Jules Furthman and Lee Brackett, 2 veterans who wrote Hawks' great film The Big Sleep, 1946. It centers on four men holed up inside a sheriff's office: a seasoned lawman, a drunk, an old coot, and a kid. This formula would prove so resilient that Hawks would remake it in El Dorado, 1966. John Carpenter would remake it as Assault on Precinct 13, 1976. And directors from Scorsese to Tarantino to Stone would directly reference it. It is a Western with all of the artifice of the genre, but the characters and their connections take on a curious reality. Within this closed system, their relationships have a psychological plausibility. Wayne, as Sheriff John T. Chance, plays what he himself called the John Wayne role. He even wears the same hat, now battered and torn, that he had worn in Westerns ever since John Ford's Stagecoach, 1939. Yet here he calls upon the role and his own history to bring nuance and depth to the character. Grumpy old Ford, seeing Hawks's Red River, said, "I never knew the big son of a bitch could act." Wayne is effective above all when he simply stands and regards people. "I don't act, I react," he liked to say, and here you see what he meant. His Chance doesn't feel it necessary to impose himself apart from the formidable fact of his presence. He never sweet-talks Feathers, Dickinson, indeed tends to be gruff toward her, but his eyes and body language speak for him. There is a moment when he is angered that she didn't get on the stage out of town, stalks upstairs to her hotel room, barges through the door and then, in the reverse shot, sees her and transforms his whole demeanor. Can you say a man softens simply by the way he holds himself? With the most subtle of body movements, he unwinds into the faintest beginning of a courtly bow. You don't see it, you feel it. Dickinson was 27, looked younger when she made the film, her first significant feature role after bit parts in TV. Wayne was 51. No matter. They fit together, they liked each other. They make this palpable without throwing themselves at each other. If you will go to chapter 21 of the DVD, you will see a romantic scene so sweet and unexpected, it may make you hold your breath. Dickinson absolutely holds the screen against the big man. Her carriage and deep, rich voice project a sense of who she is. Not a saloon floozy, but a competent professional gambler accustomed to sparring with men. She was the type of woman Hawks liked and returned to time and again. Lauren Bacall, Katharine Hepburn, Carol Lombard, Jean Arthur, Rosalind Russell, indeed the future studio executive Sherry Lansing. He loved to use again what had worked for him earlier, when Dickinson asks Wayne to kiss her a second time, because it's even better when two people do it. There's an echo of Bacall into Have and Have Not, telling Bogart, it's even better when you help. Peter Bogdanovich notices this in a supplement on the DVD and praises the long opening sequence in Rio Bravo, which runs, he says, 5 minutes without dialogue. And no wonder. Hawks used the business of a coin thrown into a spittoon in the silent film Underworld, 1927, for which he wrote the scenario. And where might Hawks have found inspiration for the scene where Wayne lifts Dickinson in his arms and carries her upstairs? Much of the strength of the Chance character comes from the way he holds himself in reserve, not feeling the need to comment on everything. His delicate relationship with Dean Martin's alcoholic character Dude involves a minimum of lectures and a lot of simply waiting to see what Dude will do. When Dude and Old Stumpy, Brennan, get in a loud argument, Hawks holds Chance in center background, observing, not interfering. Chance is always the unspoken source of authority, the audience the others hope to impress. The score by Dmitri Tiomkin evokes a frontier spirit when it wants to, but also helps deepen the film, which rarely for a Western marks the passage of days with sunsets and sunrises, and makes the town streets seem lonely and exposed. There is also the introduction of a theme known to the Mexicans as the Cutthroat Song, which the villain Burdett, John Russell, orders the band to play. Chance reads it as a message. No quarter taken. The song haunts the film. There is another use of music that some will question. In a lull in the action, the men relax inside the barricaded sheriff's office, and Martin, resting on his back with his hat shielding his eyes, begins to sing about a cowboy's loneliness. Nelson picks up his guitar and accompanies him. Then, Ricky sings an up-tempo song of his own, with Martin and even Brennan in harmony. Does this scene feel airlifted in? Maybe, but I wouldn't do without it. Martin and Nelson were two of the most popular singers of the time, and the interlude functions well as an affectionate reprise for the men before the final showdown. Needless to say, Sheriff Chance doesn't sing along. The brave sheriff takes a stand against the outlaws who threaten a town. It is a familiar Western situation, which may remind you of High Noon, 1952. In 1972, I interviewed Wayne on the set of his Cahill U.S. Marshal in Durango, Mexico. High Noon came up as it will when Westerns are being discussed. What a piece of you-know-what that was, he told me. I think it was popular because of the music. Think about it this way. Here's a town full of people who have ridden in covered wagons all the way across the plains, fighting off Indians and drought and wild animals in order to settle down and make themselves a homestead. And then when three no-good bad guys walk into town and the marshal asks for a little help, everybody in town gets shy. If I'd been the marshal, I would have been so goddamn disgusted with those chicken-livered yellow sons of bitches that I would have just taken my wife and saddled up and rode out of there. One of my go-to actions after I see a film is to look up what other critics have said about it. Sometimes it pushes me to notice something I might have overlooked. Sometimes it validates my own "hey, that was great" or "wow, that was terrible" gut instinct. And then there are the times it just makes me feel like a stupid doof because the critics are waxing rhapsodic about the stunning plot or the complex characters or, "Hey, didn't you just love the cinematography in the third act?" And usually this happens with a film I flat out hated or thought was trite and dull and predictable. So my reaction to that is, no? Like with this, Roger Ebert described this Howard Hawks' John Wayne picture the work of a master craftsman. "The film is seamless," he gushed. "There is not a shot that is wrong. It is uncommonly absorbing, and the 141-minute running time flows past like running water." He further calls this one of John Wayne's best performances, raves about the romantic chemistry between Wayne and co-star Angie Dickinson, speaks well of singer Ricky Nelson in his supporting role, and caps that paragraph off with a nod to character actor Walter Brennan, providing comic support that never oversteps. However, I thought the whole thing was predictable, the romantic chemistry attributable mostly to that old "will they or won't they end up together" trope, and thought that Walter Brennan was kinda one note. Ricky Nelson wasn't that bad, but he didn't really have that much to do. But this is Roger Ebert who was raving about the film. So that left me wondering exactly what in the hell was wrong with me for missing what he saw. Until I remembered that in matters of taste and aesthetics like this, my own opinion is just as valid as his, so there. And hey, apparently Ebert hated The Usual Suspects and Gladiator, and loved Home Alone 3, so... Grain of salt? Tradition has it that Rio Bravo was made in response to High Noon, and that Wayne signed on because he found that earlier film to be an un-American critique of McCarthyism. Both Wayne and Howard Hawks also found the plot of High Noon to be far-fetched. Hawks dismissed it as a good sheriff running around town like a chicken with his head cut off asking for help. So instead, for Rio Bravo, Wayne's Sheriff John Chance is the strong, silent type, bravely preparing to single-handedly defend his small Texas town against some bad characters, despite a whole lot of townspeople falling all over themselves to play backup. He does relent and accept help from a few folks, though. Stumpy, Walter Brennan, an older and disabled sharpshooter, is left to guard the jail, while the younger Colorado, Ricky Nelson, proves himself to be equally capable with a gun, but also smart in a crisis. And for sentiment's sake, Chance re-enlists his old deputy dude, Dean Martin, who's showing signs of finally being ready to give up the bender he's been on since getting dumped 2 years prior. The plot is practically non-existent. Dude gets into a scuffle with local bad boy Joe Burdette, a bystander gets killed in the crossfire, witnesses say Joe pulled the trigger, and Chance puts him in the clink and sends for a U.S. Marshal, prompting Joe's big brother Nathan, John Russell, to turn to increasingly violent stunts in an effort to persuade Chance to let Joe out while they wait. There's a blink and you miss it subplot involving Angie Dickinson as a showgirl Chance nicknames Feathers, who's half of a couple wanted for illegal gambling. But when Chance confronts her early on, she protests that she was roped into it, and Chance lets her go. But Feathers decides to stay around anyway, having taken a shine to Chance during that one brief conversation. Really, the plot is just an excuse for the various characters to do random stuff. Feathers and Chance have several flirtatious arguments where he stubbornly insists she should be on the next stagecoach out of town, and she just as stubbornly insists that he should admit that he deep down likes her, kinda. Dude struggles with overcoming his craving for booze. Colorado drifts in and out of his various scenes, sauntering in to say he knows he's not working for Chance or anything, but he may want to hear some of the scuttlebutt he's heard around the saloon. Stumpy says colorful things. There's even a music break, with Dude and Colorado conveniently starting a sing-along so Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson can show off their singing chops. And Chance has ample chances to look wise, stoic, big-hearted, brave, stern, or whatever random emotion the scene has decided the big hero should manifest. And, I mean, it's not that anyone is terrible in their roles. It's just that the plot points are so transparently nothing more than excuses for characters to show off different character traits, as opposed to being things that organically happen, with the most blatant of the let's show off this character plot points being reserved for Chance, piling on the heroic qualities to the point that they are no longer character traits, but rather proofs of manliness. So yeah, I wasn't all that impressed. It's safe to say. Distributed by Warner Brothers. Release date April 4th, 1959. Running time 141 minutes. Country United States. Languages English, Spanish. Budget $1,214.89. Box office $5 million. So guys, this is their view of Rio Bravo movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if I like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.